Ooh, all right. Bumps and bruises. Bumps and bruises. Greetings, everybody. This is Patrick at Cheetah Will View. It's hump day, everybody. Middle of the week. And today is definitely a spring day. It got up to 65 degrees here in southeastern Michigan. As we go to air, it's still 61. So if it's still like that in about 9:30 or 10ish, I guess I'll be taking a walk. Um, so our guest is someone who I've been hoping to get on the show for a long time. Um, I sort of look at them sort of like the four horsemen. Candace Corella, um, Hillary Kerwin, Leah Kendrick, and now Mariah Owen. Um, these are four extremely dynamic women, incredible strength, um, role models, um, just amazing people. And so far, I've gotten three of them on the show, and Mariah is the last one. But that doesn't mean she was holding out, because Mariah and I have actually I've actually done two interviews with Mariah. Um, she did a written interview with me on the blog, uh, and eight questions with me on the blog, and then I had booked her with Leah on Dr. Discord's show. So not new. And she'll be here in about 10, 15 minutes or so. And yeah, I'm excited again. And speaking of exciting, um, wow, you guys really came through last night. I was blown away by the support from you guys yesterday for Celine Silver. And honestly, wasn't she awesome? I mean, she was really something. I really enjoyed talking to her quite a bit. Hi, Jamie. And that was another person who I enjoyed talking to quite a bit, our very own Jamie Hart. Um, I hope you're feeling good today, Jamie. I think the sun probably has come out. Hopefully, the sun has come out in your neck of the woods. And that sun will feel much better. Will make you feel much better. Uh, so we've been burning up the midnight oil here on Eight Questions with, and wow. So uh, this month is going to end up with a real bang. April is already looking to be a really good month already, and then the first week of April, I will be announcing something new for May, which I'm really excited about, and I can't wait to share that with you. Um, and I will in about 2 weeks or so. But for right now, we do got the calendar to talk about because we made some additions to the calendar, and so I thought I'd bring them up to you. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go for a walk after this, I believe, Jamie. Yeah, I've been up here all day working, so I definitely gonna go outside and at least walk around the block a couple of times. So let's get into the calendar. Um, because that's what I do, right? So here we go. Tonight we have Mariah Owen will be here. Tomorrow night we will have the lovely Christy Adams will be returning to us from Nightmare Toys out in Las Vegas, Nevada, and she'll be coming back here to tell us about what Nightmare Toys has been up to. And if you've seen her pictures as of late, it does seem like she's getting a lot of new collectibles in. A lot of them. They're really cool, and I pretty much have in my head, like, if I see it on her own shelf, it's going to be on the shelf of Nightmare Toys. It's going to be there for you to buy. She's not exactly she's not going to just buy the one item and just keep it for herself. The customers come first. We knew that from the last time we talked to her. But she has a lot of new collectibles out there, so it seems to me like the market is just exploding for those figures and whatnot. So we'll be talking about that. They're also going to be expanding the store. They're going to include a restaurant, and I believe the bar is within the restaurant. So it's gonna be sort of like a hard rock cafe, so you will, like a hard rock cafe. Combining, instead of music and food, it's going to be combining horror and food. So it'll be really fun. Let's see, and then extracurricular activities includes the 19th. Me and the Cheetah, we're going on the road to visit our good friend Goraphobe. We're doing a deep dive on 1979's Phantasm. So I'll be there and with him and Drake, and we're gonna chop it up. Of course, the 20th, we're gonna be at Al Lecard's place for Friday the 13th, Part 4, a new beginning. Um, I believe that's what it is. New beginning. That's the Fell Dog movie. So we'll be there at 9 o'clock Eastern time on Al Lecard's page. And then on the 22nd, I just added this on because I didn't have anybody, but I thought, why the hell not? I'm going to do this because it should be done. Uh, I'm going to be hosting myself. We're going to be talking about our first 100 shows. So, hey, Claymere, how are you? Welcome in. I can't believe that we are the final chapter. Okay. So the new beginning, I get the new beginning. So he gets the final chapter and I get the new beginning. So I'm going to be hosting next Tuesday a show based on our first 100+ shows that we've done on the 8 questions with. We've had a lot of fantastic guests, and I just really wanted to thank them and thank you guys, because without you guys here supporting us, we would not be here doing this show. So we've had some fantastic guests, including, like I mentioned, our own lovely Jamie Hart was actually a guest, and so we're gonna be celebrating all things 8 questions with next Tuesday, 8 o'clock. And then on the 23rd, we have actress, director, and writer Destiny Soria will be here talking about her new film, Kristen Slasher, which is coming out later on this year. It's supposed to be dropping a teaser trailer soon. So we'll talk to her about that and her career. She is also a Native American. She is a part of the Kickapoo Nation. So this is a rarity for to see a Native American a woman making a film. So we'll talk to her about, if she feels any pressure about that, if she ever run across any bumps and bruises about that, how easy has it been for her to, to swim, I look at a swim upriver. It's got to be sort of difficult, but we'll talk to her about that. She's a really lovely lady so far, and I really enjoy talking to her on Facebook. So I believe we're going to have a great interview. And then on the 24th, we have the lovely Devaney Penn will be here. She is a modern screen queen. Gosh, I hope I can call her that, because that's, because she fits the profile. She can scream. She kicks ass. Actually, she can kick ass too. I really love the fact that she is not afraid to get her hands dirty. She's been in a movie called The Dawn. She's also been Crossbreed and Escape from Ensenada. And so she'll be here talking about her career. She's also a new mom, so we'll talk about the balance between that and balancing a career versus motherhood. And then on the 25th of March, we have a special show on Friday. We are welcoming in Sadie Katz will be here. This will be our first time to talk to Sadie in quite a while. We had Sadie come on the midnight hour last year, but now we're going to get her on a one-to-one basis here on 8 questions with, and it should be quite a fun, very fun, because Sadie is a very fun. She's a very fun lady. Anybody's ever worked with her that's the first thing they'll say. It's like, Sadie is one cool lady, and we happen to agree with that. Then, because this is a packed month, Women in Horror Month, we are back on Monday for a special show. On Monday, we're welcoming in the actress Laura I'm saying this right. Talion, Laura Talion will be here at 8 p.m. on the 28th. And then on the 29th, we have a doubleheader. See, I told you this is going to be a busy, busy day. Busy, busy. We have, we're going across the pond to talk to Kelly Goody. I'll be joined in that journey by our good friend Karen from Ocean Chick Films. She will come up there and co-host this show with me. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll come back to that night and talk to Monique Candelaria. Will be here on 8 o'clock on the 29th of March. On the 30th, we have actress Tatiana Larea will be here talking about horror and her roles in horror films and how she feels about the genre and her career. So again, we're really busy. And then the last day of Women of Horror Month, on the 31st of March, we're welcoming in Holly Lynch. Holly Lynch will be here with us. Woo! That's a lot of talent coming our way, is it not? A lot of talent. Yes, yeah, no doubt, Clay. I'm yeah, but I love it. Um, I love it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So Mariah Owen, like I mentioned before, our guest tonight, she is a writer, she is a director, a producer, an actress, and she also runs GTE Productions. She founded the company when she was only 21, and they concentrate on putting out meaningful content that speaks to people, whether it be shorts, documentaries, features, anything that's socially relevant, and it helps women get put their voice out there. They're all about that. She will actually be joining us after spending yesterday. Yesterday she was in Texas, Austin, Texas, for South by Southwest, and today she had to fly up to Vancouver because she's doing a new project, and she flew up there today. So she will probably be. Hopefully, she got a nap. Quite honestly, I hope she had a nap. We might, if not, I hope she has a pillow just in case she falls asleep on us. That's a lot of miles to put. One day you're watching a lot of cool films, and the next day you're flying across the country to another country. And then you're doing the show. So uh, it will be very entertaining. Let's see. All right. She'll be here momentarily, and we'll kick this off. So, of course, we also, which I'll also mention too. I don't know when it will be. I'll probably have that by tomorrow. I do know that we will also be talking IFC movies. We will be talking me and the Night Watch Zone, Night and Coriander, along with Cadaver Club from Coast to Coast. We will be talking about Relic at the end of the month. Uh, Star Lord, welcome, sir. Welcome. Glad you are here. Our guest tonight is Mariah Owen, and she has starred in some really cool stuff, including a movie I actually reviewed, which is called Pamela and Ivy. She also starred in a movie called MFA that was directed by or written by Leah McKendrick. And yeah, and she has produced 25 different projects. Some are various state of production, pre-filming, and post. And so she's not adverse to horror films. So she knows her way around this. She knows the way around the genre, both horror and actually superheroes as well. So, yep. All right. What's going on, Mr. Bones? Mr. Bones is in the house. Good to see how my wrenches are here. I really do appreciate that. It just seems to be more and more that unfortunately, from what I've seen from other channels, it seems to be more and more. Sadly, it's weird, but it seems that we have to have more and more wrenches in the rooms because there's been some shenanigans going on. So glad G2 guys are here. That really takes a lot of pressure off me. Um, nice one, Jamie. All right, so put your hands together for the lovely Mariah Owen. Let's go get her. There she is.
Hello. Hi. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Oh, can you hear me okay? Hey, Patrick?
Acting a fool. Sorry about that, Mariah.
No worries at all. I was like, oh, where'd he go?
Yeah.
It is all good in the hood.
Yeah, StreamYard has been acting weird today. I was in another stream watching, and they were having a dickens of a time as well. So, it was very sensitive today. Wow, nice to meet you face to face.
I know. Likewise, I was just sending the link to a few friends. So, yeah, I'm so grateful to be here and so excited. And I just got back to Vancouver. I'm actually in my friend's room where I'm staying. So I'm really
Right.
glad we.
That is a. Tell me you got a nap though.
I didn't nap. I
You did?
literally I did not.
Oh,
I came straight from the airport. I had to pick up my car and my dog, who is laying on my friend's bed right now.
uh-huh. Knocked out. Uh, yeah, I should probably mention that we'll probably have a cameo appearance by the Cheetah later on. He
Awesome.
seems to be wanting a part of the action. He crashed it yesterday. I don't know where that is. This is lately. He's just been hammering it up.
No
Um,
worries.
so yeah, I was mentioning how when we talked, you were down in Austin yesterday, last night,
This
and then
morning.
you had this morning even. And then you had to take all the plane from Texas all the way to Vancouver. And I said, well, I hope she managed to get a nap in. Otherwise, I'm going to suggest she has a pillow by her head because she could fall asleep on us.
Oh, no way. I can't. I'm too excited for this.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because this is going to be a lot of fun. I explained to the chat that this is you and I. We have never met face to face, but we're not strangers to each other. We've been on social media friends for a few years now, and you've actually done two interviews. One I set up with Dr. Discord, and
Yes.
one you did with me on the blog. So. Yeah, but you've been so incredibly busy. I mean,
Thank
you're always busy. I mean, even when you're doing leisure time, I can still see the wheels turning in your head, you
Thank
know?
you. Yeah, I mean, I feel like life is short, and I want to try and do as many things as possible. And I have a lot of different interests when I'm not filmmaking. And yeah, I'm so glad that we've created this friendship through social media, and excited to chat today.
Uh, so I guess we'll get this cracking off by because you're Canadian. That's one thing I should mention. So you were born and raised in Canada then,
Yes, in Toronto.
in
So
Toronto.
I'm from Toronto. Yeah, we don't pronounce the T at the end.
So how do you say it? Toronto?
Toronto. Yeah, you
Oh,
roll them
Toronto.
off. Yep.
I actually, me and my wife, we went to Toronto. We took a Canadian trip, and we stopped by there. And it's an interesting city.
It is. I mean, Toronto, I mean, I'm a little biased. I do love the city. It's the most multicultural city in the world. There's more languages and mother tongue spoken than anywhere else. And so any type of awesome food you want to get, there's a bunch of booming industries. So, I'm very proud to be from there, and a lot of creativity for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. The multi diversity. Yeah, there's all sorts of small communities. We walked through at least four or five.
Right.
I think there was like a little Chinatown. There's the Vietnamese. There was Thai.
Little Italy.
Um, I didn't go to Little Italy. Um, I'm trying to think where else we went. We even saw some Native Canadians up there. Uh,
Awesome.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really nice city, and we really enjoyed ourselves, except for the hotel room. My wife got stuck in the
Oh,
bathroom. That was
oh,
entertaining.
yikes. Well, hopefully you made more wonderful memories other than that experience, so that's what you think of when you think of
No,
travel.
no, I definitely have positive memories. We went over there, then we went to Niagara. We went to Niagara Falls. That was amazing. We see it on the Canadian side. It was
Right.
amazing. Um, so you were born in Toronto. Wow. So that, I mean, you're metropolitan. So what was your upbringing like? Were your parents creatives right off the bat, or were you a creative growing up, or was that something that developed as you got a little bit older?
So neither of my parents are in the arts, but they both really appreciate it. So that's something I'm really grateful for. So growing up, my dad got me to start cartooning pretty early. I always had a sketchbook. I grew up doing improv and musical theater, mostly as activities, never thinking that it would be something that would be my full-time career path. But I always joke around. My first job was when I was 2.5 days old. I grew up modeling. Um, so I modeled for a really long time up until I was like 12, 13. And, then kind of focused more so on sports. I was an athlete growing up. I competed in ski racing and cheerleading and was super, super passionate about that. And always, in the back of my mind, I loved performing. I loved making people laugh. I loved communicating with people and just telling stories in general. So it was always something that I wanted to do, but didn't really think it was possible. And I'm very grateful for my parents who helped facilitate a lot of opportunities. I got to go train at Strasberg under the Lee Strasberg Institute of Theater and Film in Los Angeles, and I went to Randolph Academy and a bunch of these different places that really solidified to me that I wanted to do this and I wanted to get better, not only as a performer but as a storyteller. So
So, was your dad an artist then? You
my
mentioned
dad
they were in the arts, but it sounds like he was an artist, right?
My dad still cartoons, and he was a professor, and his whole background is more so in abnormal psychology, and my mom is involved in gymnastics. So they're both not necessarily in the arts at all, but they support the arts and they love the arts, and they still are really supportive of what I'm doing.
Um, so you enjoyed your sports career, right? I mean, how old were you when you decided that you're making people laugh, you're making people, you're like, you're seeing them laugh and it makes you feel good. It always makes you feel good when you make somebody else laugh.
Really,
When did you start getting
really.
the inkling that maybe this is something you wanted to pursue?
That is such a great question. I think I've always loved making people laugh, making people feel welcomed. I think that's something, in particular, my mom has such a great gift for. She can really make people feel welcomed and seen. And, both my parents are pretty goofy people. So it just kind of was a no brainer that, we're always making jokes and we're watching movies and we're, kind of finding different creative spins on things. Um, I grew up going to Second City as well. So from a young age. I started there when I was 7 doing improv and just recreationally. And then once I was in high school, I was performing a couple Friday nights a week or a month. There's only one Friday night a week. Ooh. I should have had that nap from South by. Um, but yeah, I was like, I really love this. But I think for me, the one experience that I was like, I kind of knew it was undeniable that I really wanted to do this in some capacity was while I was at Strasberg. I was our lead in our musical, and just getting the opportunity to act and sing and dance and help out with the show behind the scenes. I really enjoyed that. And I finished high school pretty early. I was 16 and I went to University of Toronto. And originally thinking that I would go into something within health science, probably sports medicine, because I was an athlete for so long. And halfway through, a very good friend of mine and teammate passed away. And um, I took a year off of school, and my parents, and in particular my dad, was like, "You can't just sit at home and be sad. Like, what are you gonna do?" And thought about it, and I ended up going back to Second City for their adult improv program and their comedy writing program. And part of their comedy writing program is, for your graduation, you write a show for the main stage, which is their big performance venue in Toronto. And I loved it. I loved writing the show. I loved working with other actors, shadowing the director of the show. And I just kind of thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So switched into English and cinema studies, which is film history. So I didn't go to film school. And from there was just super hyper focused on finding ways to work within the industry. To kind of circle back to your question, I always knew that I loved the arts and I wanted to be in the arts in some capacity, but I don't really think I thought it was possible or plausible until I was probably, 19, 20.
Yeah, yeah. And you struck where the iron was hot. I mean, you formed GTE when you're only 21.
Mhm.
Well, you already showed the drive already.
Thank you.
I want to do something, so this is what I'm going to do, and I want to control what I do. That's I want
Totally.
to be, I want to be able to drive. I want to drive the car. I mean, it'd be great to make a company and everything else, but creativity. Sometimes that gets overtaken, but there's too many hands in the pot. So forming your own company and making sure you're in charge, so your vision can be realized. It's pretty mature for 21. You know, most people don't get that until like in their 30s. So
I had some really unique opportunities. Part of graduating high school early, I fast tracked, and as well, I did school. I did some exchange studies to Australia and Japan. So I had a lot of really unique experiences that a typical 16-year-old wouldn't have. And on top of that, part of the requirements for my high school, you had to do a co-op. And at 16, who wants no one's hiring a 16-year-old. And through cheerleading, a really wonderful woman named Jen Pritchard, who was also a coach at my cheerleading gym. And she was like, I work at Chorus Entertainment. And I was like, you do? Like, that's so cool. And Chorus, they're an incredible company. They have over, now I think they have over 15 channels, but at the time they were, a really massive network and had shows, or had networks rather of HBO, OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, Cosmo, Slice. They had all of these really cool opportunities for me to kind of get in on the ground level of distribution side, kind of after the films and projects have already been made, scheduling the show, seeing how the corporate side of film really worked. And I
right.
really enjoyed that. And I worked in on-air promotions and marketing. So that gave me a really unique perspective that there are so many moving parts within the entertainment industry. And, if that was one path I wanted to go, it definitely was something that I could do. But it kind of also helped me realize that a typical 9 to 5 working at a desk job was just wasn't for me, And so I'm so sorry, Patrick. Remind me of my, oh, right, 21, how I started my company. Um, with that drive. So I had that experience, knew I didn't want to do a 9 to 5. I had worked for some other people, and I worked on one project that was a digital series that got picked up by Canada's largest distributor. And it was a really wonderful opportunity at the time when I was 20. And I loved the people that I worked with for the most part, but I really didn't enjoy the director that I worked with. And it was a really tough experience. And I kind of thought, okay, I'm learning, but I'm also learning a whole lot of what I don't think I'd want to do. And I was like, I think I might be able to do this. And I don't know if I can do it better, but I can definitely treat people better, which is something that's always been important to me. And, in terms of how I was raised to treat people well, like you should just be kind to people. And so that's kind of how that started. And I wanted to work with union actors and didn't really have any connections. Didn't, like I said, I didn't have family or friends really in the industry at all. And did a non-union short. It did well, did another. And I was like, okay, how do I work with union actors? How do I level up here? And the only option I had was to either be an incorporated company and a part of the Canadian Media Producers Association, which is essentially the Producers Guild of America in Canada, or know somebody who was. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know anyone. So the only thing I can do right now is incorporate my company. So then at least I have one of those steps. So I did that, and then reached out to an actor, who reached out to a director, who reached out to an editor, who reached out to a producer who was willing to jump on the phone with me. And they were a member of the Canadian Media Producers Association. And I was like, maybe they'll mentor me, which is another way to be able to produce union work.
Sure.
And he was so wonderful to me. He jumped on the phone. We had this great conversation. And I was like, yes, like I got this. He's going to be my mentor. Life is awesome. Look at me go. And, the next day he emailed me back and he was like, hey, I really enjoyed our chat. I think you have so much talent and ambition, blah, blah, blah. But I don't have time to be your mentor. And I closed my laptop and I was like, oh, my life is over, like so dramatic. And I was like, I have to respond to this guy. Like he literally took the time to talk to me. I have no credits really, and no experience. And I finished reading the email, and what he said was, I don't have time to mentor you, but I can refer you into the CMPA. So that was, looking back now, I'm just so grateful for that opportunity, because by him taking a chance on me, that opened doors for me that would have taken me so much longer to get into. And it's something I never really took for granted. I was the youngest member to join the CMPA at 21, and after that I was like, okay, I want to help other young women, in particular, young people, but
Right.
young women, uh, get in there sooner and have more of us. So from there, had my company, started working, did some shorts, started the festival circuit. Fast forward, then I met Leah McKendrick, who we know and love, and is one of my best friends, and did MFA, and every project from there I've just tried to grow and explore different avenues and different mediums within TV and film. And yeah, that's like a shortened story, but
It's yeah, because you do everything. I mean, you produce. I mean, in fact, when you bring up your database page, that's the first thing that jumps out is you're a producer first. Not actress, and then other things. It's producer. You've done over 20. The last count, you've done over 20 projects. You got several that are in the process of the stages of pre-shooting and post. So. I mean, you've been incredibly busy. Every time I see you, I mean, when you're, on the working picture, the pictures you show of you at work, you're always at work, and Canada, like I said to you when we did our pre-show, Canada has so much talent. It's amazing to me, for supposedly such a small country like you guys are, as far in terms of population, but your talent base is like, I mean. I dare say if you were at the same size as the United States, your talent base would probably be 5 times as large. Quite honest.
Thank you for saying that. I think Canada, we, lots of talents here, but we don't necessarily have the tools to utilize that talent. So a lot
Now,
of people,
why do you think that is, Mariah?
I think, Canada as a country is extremely risk adverse. I love Canada. I have represented Canada. I've competed for Canada. But I think ultimately within the entertainment industry, we always put ourselves, well, I just say I don't put myself on the back burner, but Canada puts its own content on the back burner. We're a huge, 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 huge part of the service industry for American and UK shows. And so I think a lot of the successful Canadians that we know and love within the entertainment industry, whether it's TV, film, music, whatever, if you want to be successful, you got to leave. You have to come to the States. And that's unfortunate, because you work so hard to come down to the US to typically go back and shoot in your home country because they're utilizing tax credits. So it's a really, I think it might have something to do with, not being as large in population, so we don't have as many people within the unions, within, that, but we have incredible locations, incredible talented people, both above and below the line. So I really hope that that will change one day. But for right now, I'm, just so focused on being where the movers and shakers are in the US.
Well, one of the things is, it's just that I've noticed too. It's like a lot of times, like we always hear about, our what's going on here. Like I really truly did not understand for a long time that up in Canada they do their own thing. I mean, you guys have your TV stations,
Yep.
you guys have your TV series.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think, well, yeah, that's great. How can we never see it down here? I mean,
Mhm.
I could go get a BBC title. I can go to the store and get that. I can go, I can read about that. But
Mhm.
I never see anything from, the Canadian side. Like, when someone pops up like a show, like, I'll use for example, Flashpoint. I know that ran for like 5 or 6 years up there, and it's like it only got down here because I think we had a strike,
Right.
and they played it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that show was there. It's like, what else do you guys have?
Well,
Because we don't know anything about it. It never gets down here.
yeah. I think that's definitely a problem, or if the shows are down there, people don't realize that they're Canadian. Schitt's Creek is Canadian, Kim's Convenience is Canadian, Orphan Black was Canadian. There's a new show called Sort of on HBO Max, which is a partnership with CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So I just don't think that Canada highlights itself enough,
Mm.
So I think I really hope that that changes, especially, there are so many talented people out there and so many people trying to pave a new path and make it so, Canadians can film and stay in their own country. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that that will change.
Now, the majority of projects that you've done, though, they
Mhm.
have been done in Canada.
It's a 50-50 split. I feel like since the pandemic, I've really tried to shift my focus to, I mean, I was in Canada. So if I wanted to shoot, I had to shoot in Canada. Um, but yeah, it's definitely been a mix. And I think that early on in my career, not a lot of people were willing to take a risk on a 21-year-old producer, and definitely not a 21-year-old producer who wanted to act or wanted to write or wanted to direct or any of those things. And the answer that I kept getting in Canada was, we'll work with you in a couple years. Like, sounds
Uh,
great. Good luck. And I was so infuriated that people expected me to wait until I was more chronologically advanced in order to do the things I wanted to do.
the thing is, when people do that, they sit there and say, "Come back in a couple of years," and you look at it and go, like, "How can I get to where you want me to be in a couple of years if I don't get to work now?"
Totally.
I mean, you
Totally.
know, it's
Yeah.
like you want me to come back in a couple of years, but if I don't gain the experience from working now, all you're going to get it's just me 2 years older, but with the same
It's
skill set.
And it was interesting, especially after MFA, I felt a big shift because MFA premiered at South by Southwest 5 years ago. And I was 22 or I was 21 when we shot it, 22 when we filmed it and premiered it. Sorry, 22 when we premiered it at South by. And I remember coming back to Toronto, and a lot of the people that had told me we'll work with you in a couple of years, a year or a year and a half prior, were like, let's set up a meeting. And I
Yeah,
was like, "Well, I don't, almost not out of spite, but kind of like, you didn't wanna work with me before, but now that I have it like an American stamp of approval, or, we got into South by Southwest and that credit is now on my resume, now you wanna talk to me?" And it kind of really altered the way that I viewed the types of films I wanted to make, how I went about making films. Canada has obviously these very lucrative tax credits, but there's also a lot of government funding, but typically the films that I make just haven't been a fit for them. So it's it's hard. I'm grateful for the projects that I work on and I have worked on and that I will work on, but I think I've just really been focused on finding another way, other than people telling me what way I should do it.
um, you're not averse to doing not only. I mean, are you? Would your company? Would you do something like other than feature films or shorts? Would you do documentaries? Was that
I
something? If someone came up to you and said, I want a GET to help me back me up. I got this idea for a documentary. Is that something that you guys will do, or are you just trying to stay to the feature films, the you know the storytelling?
That's a really good question. I think, for so long I wanted to just be like a boutique, production company that was strictly focused on narrative and long form narrative. But now, things are really changing, and the stories I want to tell are changing. You're a very different person, 22 to 27, and the things that happen in your life. So I really enjoy documentaries. I think there's a lot of risk involved. So for me, when I think narrative, you got a script, you can plan it out, the days that you're shooting, what you're shooting, who you're shooting with, and all of those things you can really calculate ahead of time, and you do calculate ahead of time. Um, so I think documentaries make me a little nervous at times because, you go in with an idea, but you don't always know what you're going to get, and you don't know what people are going to say. And, an editor really helps to kind of finesse that documentary to come to life. But no, I'm not against it. This past summer, I had the opportunity to work on a doc, and I really enjoyed it. It was with a longtime friend of mine. She was directing, and I came on board to help. And that kind of opened my eyes to some new experiences and thinking, hey, I'd be interested in that. I think it would just really depend on the subject matter. I love the ocean. I love skiing. If it's about
Mm.
the environment or adventure, I definitely would be into it.
Um, y- yeah, I mean, you definitely like skiing. I have to say this one thing. I have to say this right now because I know that if my wife was here, she would definitely say the same thing.
Mhm.
But you look sensational at anything that you wear.
Oh,
Like,
thank you. Thank you
I
so
mean,
much.
it's like everything you wear, the colors just seem to really like you.
Thank you. That is so kind of you. I definitely love finding, I think fashion is such a cool way to express yourself, and I definitely love, finding things.
Um, MFA. I mean, that was a horror film.
Yes.
Uh,
Would you
um,
want to say thriller, horror? We kind of fall into the horror genre as a
uh,
as a big part.
do you like horror, Mariah? Is that something you like to do or produce or direct or act in?
I It's interesting. So growing up, I was a massive chicken. Could not watch horror films to save my life. I had to watch them with the lights on. Like I no. But I think, I've always loved psychological thrillers. So, looking at The Sixth Sense, different. I, I think it depends on the story, it depends on the narrative. I'm not about slasher films, although I really love Kevin Williamson, incredible writer, creator. Um, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, then he went on to do Vampire Diaries and a bunch of different shows. So I think that horror and the thriller genre has really provided a unique opportunity for emerging artists, because you can shoot something really cool with not necessarily a whole lot of money. And MFA, that movie, I mean, that will always hold such a special spot in my heart because not only was it the very first feature I ever worked on, but like it brought me Leah. And that,
Right.
that's been such an imperative relationship in my life, both creatively and personally.
Yes. Yeah, I agreed. Leah is she's amazing, isn't she? I adore her. I adore her.
And
She's so much
she's
fun.
such a horror lover, and I try, like I've definitely um tried to watch more horror. It's it's something I'm actively working on, but yeah, I would definitely say
No,
that
but
I'm more.
Canadians do horror really well, though, Mariah.
They do. They do. I have a lot of really good friends who are specifically focused on horror. And, I think it's because the format, you can write a really cool, unique story and shoot it in a way that doesn't destroy your bank account for the most part. I don't know
Right.
another genre that you can really do that and still make it entertaining and exciting and scary. You're kind of forced to use the elements of what you have within that genre, which makes it really possible.
Um, how does it work for Canada if you were going to make a movie, right? And can you apply to the like there like an art council or on the government level that you apply for grants to help make your films?
Totally, you can. Canada has a lot of different funding organizations at the regional, provincial, and federal levels. Um, I've only really taken part in a few of them, because typically the projects that I work on just aren't a fit, based on the subject matter, whether that, it would have been really difficult to have gotten any more Canadian financing for a film like MFA, just because the risk was so high based on the subject matter. And I think now it would be possible, especially after Me Too. But yeah, there's tons of opportunities. In Toronto alone, they have the Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, Canada Arts Council, the Independent Production Fund, which is across Canada, Telefilm, and Canadian Media Fund, which are both at the national level. So there are a lot of unique opportunities. It just depends on your timeline, your budgets, where you want your film to live, all of that stuff.
Um, the Toronto International Film Festival, it seems to be like the biggest one of its kind on the North America. When I think of the festivals, like the mover and shakers, Toronto is right there. It's the first thing I think of. It's
Yeah.
so influential. I remember I was reading, and they called Renee Zellweger to win for Judy, and I'm
Right.
thinking, how the hell are you going to call that over that kind of movie? But they
Right.
called it, and that's what happened. She ended up winning it. Um, how influential is that festival to fellow Canadians? Is it easy for Canadian folks to get inside the festival, or is it just Toronto name only, and they'll take anybody else? I mean, how hard would it be for you to get a film into there?
It is highly, highly competitive. And it also depends on the time of year that you make your film. These films have deadlines. And, if you finish your film in August, well, you probably don't want to wait until June of the next year when TIFF opens um, its uh, its cycle for filmmaking. So you really kind of have to plan around the dates of thinking, okay, this is when we want to shoot this film. Let's say it's set in the summertime. Well, okay, if it's set in the summertime, how long is our post production going to take? Do we want to wait for TIFF? Or if you have a distributor, like they might have a plan. So ultimately, it just depends on a lot of different factors, but TIFF is highly competitive. It's one of the most entered festivals in the world. But I think for myself, is even before I was a filmmaker, well, I am a filmmaker, no air quotes, but before I was doing this full time, just as an everyday cinephile, getting to experience the Toronto International Film Festival basically in my backyard, was such a really wonderful experience because you're in the thick of it. It brings a certain energy to the city that is just undeniable and infectious. So TIFF every year is one of my favorite times to be in Toronto. And it just kind of, it just inspires me. It's the same how I feel with South by. Like, I definitely have come home more inspired than when I left, which is a really good feeling to feel.
Yeah, South by Southwest. I love it. We and I were talking about that. I mean, there's people go there for both film, see what's coming up on film. Me, I always was looking at for the bands, because back then that's when I was working in music. I would just sit there and read anything and everything I could get about the band that played by Southwest.
Right.
Such and such band's heading down there, or coming out of it, or this is the next hot band or whatever. And I'd be sitting there just waiting for it and writing down the names and just sitting there going like, okay, let me go find out where they're, who's repping them, and or whatnot. I got a few bands that way. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. What do now that you've been to South by Southwest and TIFF? I mean, what's the energy like between the two of them? One seems really urban, and one seems really gritty. Is that a fair assessment?
I I don't know. I would say that South by Southwest, in my opinion, is truly the last filmmaker festival. So what I mean by that, everyone is just so all about the community. Everyone wants to connect, whether you are in film, you're in interactive, you're in music, you're in tech, whatever. You cross paths, you overlap. Austin just is such an incredible city, and it's a whole lot of fun. Nothing ever feels rushed. It doesn't feel chaotic. I mean, chaotic in the way that there are so many people, and lots of things to do, and there's always an event happening, and you don't know which event you want to go to the most. But TIFF really feels more of a business vibe. People go there specifically to sell their films within a market, so it feels a little bit more like South by feels like an epic reunion of filmmakers that, even if you don't know them, you respect one another, and you really spend a lot of time communicating and collaborating based on the spaces that you're in, and TIFF feels more business, and it's still in a great way, but it's a different vibe. Austin is a little bit more laid back. Keep Austin weird, and TIFF is a super fast paced, businessy type of vibe, but still with great films and great events. And it's just, I would say it's a little bit more fast paced, and it's more condensed as well within the city.
Uh, yeah, it was good to see it come back this year. It's good to see them coming out and get, coming back with a vengeance. It seems like,
Totally.
uh, you said you came back more inspired. What are you currently working on now?
I have a little bit of everything going on, which is exciting. So I'm in post production on a few feature films that I shot in 2021. I'm on the festival circuit now with my first short as a writer, director, producer, and star. It's called Disconnected. So it just premiered at the Mammoth Film Festival at the beginning of February this past year, and has recently sold to CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So it'll play on TV later this fall, in addition to being on the CBC Gem app, which is where you'll find Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience and a whole bunch of other projects. So that's exciting. And we just got into Twin Rivers, which is a festival in its 27th year in North Carolina. So this year's really been about kind of pivoting more, towards my creator driven projects. Like I still have a lot that I'm just strictly producing, but trying to find ways and avenues to be a creator as well. So lots of pitching, have a couple shows in development with different companies. So it's a really exciting year, and I'm excited to see the growth that comes from it.
Is acting, and you act, I mean, but is acting that's not your first passion, though, is it? Being behind the camera seems to be. It seems like almost like you come out once in a while, huh? Oh,
I'm sorry, my dog is barking. 1 second. Sorry, everybody. Live interviews, so fun.
yeah. He was wanting to steal scene from you.
Oh yeah, she was like, I'm ready. I'm done.
I'm ready for my close up, Miss Owen.
Absolutely. Acting will always be such a passion of mine, and I feel like I really took time off to build my production company because I wasn't getting the roles that I wanted. I had a great agent, and I was at a big fancy agency, all of this stuff, but I wasn't going out as much. I wasn't booking as much. And so I really got, hyper fixated on growing my company, creating new platforms and creating new opportunities and avenues in order to succeed. And if there were projects that I could act in that I was also producing, awesome. But not every project that I produce, I have to act in. And now that my production company is, I would say fairly stable, we, have a certain amount of projects that we put out every year and kind of are able to expand in new directions. And that sense of confidence has really allowed me to kind of get back more to acting and be like, no, I am a creator, I am a performer. So I think for me, I'll never pick just one. I really want to act, produce, write, and direct. And any four of those and any combination will make me happy as a creator. But as specifically with my production company, I love producing. I love it. I love being with the project start to finish. I love being able to help people tell their stories, or tell any story, and just to be a teammate, because filmmaking at the end of the day, it's a sport, and you have to be a good teammate. And everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, I'm really grateful I get to do what I do.
Let's see. Madison is here. Madison Giuliano.
Giuliano?
Yes. See here. She just said Mammoth.
Yes.
Oh,
I can see the comments on this side. Yep. Very cool.
Yeah, you mentioned being a team. That's a good analogy too. I see it as well. Why do you think this? I mean, you work with low budget, you look with low budget films projects and whatnot, and it seems like there's a common theme about that. It seems like sometimes when you don't have the much money, it does seem like more and more. It seems like sometimes the smaller projects, they turn into. I mean, there's been some. Just the last week, I've heard some scary ass stories. Like, it just seems like the less money you have, the more fracture there is in a project. Keeping it all together, keeping your talent there, and everything else. Um, have you had to come across that as a producer, where you've had a really rough set and you've had to work hard to keep it together, keep the project on wheels?
I mean, I to be honest, I want to say no. Like every project has something. And the biggest film that I've worked on right now is 4.5 million, which is still considered an indie film, which boggles my mind. And but in the beginning, especially, shooting films or this summer I shot one for 275,000, and that felt like we were scraping the barrel a little bit. It was a big ensemble cast, lots of locations, lots of movement. It's a musical. Like there's all these musical numbers, and just I think when you have that, you really have to focus more so on, okay, we're a team. It's all hands on deck. We have to be kind to one another. We have to be good teammates. We have to find a way to make this work. And I think if you're, it's similar to any situation. If you're going to live beyond your means, or you're going to make a movie beyond your means, you got to get creative. You know, you whether that's asking for favors or finding different ways to shoot a project so that it doesn't break your bank account. There are a lot of different opportunities around that, but I really haven't had. I'm really particular about how I like to run sets, how I like to treat people, and I think when you're in a leadership position, as you are as a producer or as a director, but even as a producer, you're responsible for the tone on set. You're responsible for how people talk to each other. You're responsible for how, people in, let's say, lower positions or less experienced positions, such as a production assistant, how do they learn? How do they grow? How what's the etiquette on set? And I think for me, I've just always, really tried to treat my projects as if they were my team, because they are. You have to be respectful to one another, whether you are above the line talent or you're the below the line talent. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter the project size, it doesn't matter the budget. I think when you respect one another and you communicate effectively, then you'll have a good plan. And we've seen a lot of unfortunate things in the news this year, especially within the film industry. You look at Rust, that was poor communication, and it led to an unfathomable tragedy. So yeah,
What how did that happened down here in the States? How did that affect the film industry in Canada? Did everybody just pretty much say, hey, let's talk about this, let's go over the game plan, let's tighten up our own safety rules and regulations?
Absolutely. I think when any type of tragedy strikes like that, especially as artists, it has to affect you. That's one of our own. That could be any of us, and it's devastating and terrifying, and it's like the worst nightmare that you can imagine happening. So I think, hopefully that people will try a little bit harder and communicate better and hold people to a higher standard. And you can't cut corners. If you don't have the budget for it, don't do it, or go out and find more money so that you can do it safely and properly. I'm, I haven't, it's hard for me to understand how something like that can happen truly when I've worked at projects that are way, way less, financially, or, they're lower budgets. They're lower budgets. And we've had guns on set, and we've
It was just absolutely sloppiness. That
had
that the weapon master, I mean, the prop master, he dropped the ball.
a lot of people did, though. There's so many, it's so hard because you can't just blame one person in that situation, because again, it goes back to being a team. You got to make sure that people are double checking your work. They have your back. You ask questions if you don't know something. And this is one thing I'm very grateful to my parents for, so many things, but they always taught me, like, if you don't know something, ask. Like, there's no harm in asking. There's no harm in double checking, and like,
There's a trust factor though too, Mariah, because
yeah.
I feel really bad for Alec Baldwin. I think he's screwed. He
Mhm.
didn't had it was no fault of his. If I'm sitting there and I'm the talent, right? I'm the talent, and my job is to act, okay? And it's, a lot of people say, well, why didn't you check the gun? It's like, that's what they're there for. That's why the prop master's there. That's why he has assistants and everything else. The only thing that the actor should have to worry about is
Is
just
their
put the gun
performance.
in his hand. It's just put it in his hand, or the sword or whatever it is, the stunt or whatever it is. That's all they have to do.
Yep.
That's why they had all those safety checks, and it's just like it's really frustrating reading about that, about how, you know he shouldn't have to worry about somebody else doing their job.
Yeah.
As an actress,
Mhm.
where you haven't been in the producer role, right? You're just acting on a set. Have you seen that kind of? Have you seen that sort of? Someone hasn't really, crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and as an actress, what kind of or an actor in general, how can they speak up and raise concerns without being labeled like, oh, this person's disgruntled or this person's just being
Yeah.
a diva or whatnot? How do you balance that?
That's a
Have you?
really good question. I mean, I think rust is a very complicated situation and a complicated example to try and extrapolate at this time because there's so many things that we don't know about it, as full confirmation. But I agree, like as a performer, you should be able to 100% trust the people around you because what you're supposed to do is perform. You are a performer. And so I wouldn't fault an actor for that. However, I think that there are a lot of other responsibilities. Alec Baldwin, I don't know him, but he's also a producer on the film, and that film has had a lot of very problematic situations leading up to that and, that horrible accident. So I don't think that that's necessarily the case study to follow per se as a performer. I think I've definitely been on sets, whether it's been as an actor or director, and I'm not producing, that the hair on the back of my neck stands up and the things, I realize what I would have done differently. Or if I'm not comfortable, I say something and not in a way to try and put someone down. It's sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that, if people aren't able to respect someone who says, hey, I don't understand, then maybe you shouldn't be working with them. Like, and I know that's so much easier said than done because we have, rent to pay, you want to eat, all this stuff. I'm trying to give my dog the best life possible, so I have to work. But I think there's a certain type of integrity that is required in every position within this industry, and I think you know, um, it breaks my heart a little bit that people don't have the confidence yet within their skill set to speak up about the things that are bothering them, or they don't have the community, or they don't have the support. And I think so. The projects that I work on, I really try to make sure that every person feels supported, every person feels heard, and that doesn't mean that I'm going to have a PA come up to me and say something. Your director shouldn't have said that. It doesn't mean that, but it means they can come up to me individually and have a conversation and say, "Hey, this I felt uncomfortable here," and it's a safe spot to talk and communicate. There's um, I think it's really important to have sets where people feel safe, they feel respected, and they feel like everybody there, has their best interest at heart. Because like we
Has
don't
that happened to you on any of your sets where people have come up to you and said, I don't feel comfortable? Have people come up there and said that? Like, I don't really feel that this is like a safe stunt, or I don't think that we have enough protocol in place to do this sort of shot, or I mean, has that happened? And I mean,
we
how do you decide, what is like, if somebody comes up there and says, hey, this might not work for us, but then like four other people, or your department head walks up there and says, there's no concerns, we got it. So how do you balance between that? Like,
totally.
you want to go ahead and get both sides to, like your attention, but you're on a budget and you're on a schedule. So as a producer, how do you fix those sort of problems?
That's a really awesome question. I think for me and my personal experience, it's been like, okay, let's have a conversation about it. Because typically the people that are going to be most at risk for something that's unsafe are our performers. There are performers or camera operators, or stunt performers as well. So I think just making sure that everybody feels very clear on what they're doing, and if there's any type of discrepancy, it's like, okay, we can take 2 minutes, that's not going to kill us in overtime, but also making sure that before the day, you go into it with a plan, you go into it with a rehearsal, you have that key communication. But stuff happens. Like you, earlier this summer on a feature had a gaffer who also works as a DP fight a DP, a director of photography of that particular film on a certain rig because they weren't experienced with it as a gaffer. And the way that it came out was kind of inappropriate, but the intention was correct. The intention was regarding safety. And so we're like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. We don't need to have two guys battling it out with their egos. We can just, figure it out, have a conversation, and do what's safe. And so then after reviewing the rigging, he was like, oh, you know what? I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. And they were able to have a better relationship because we're all learning. No one knows the right way to do things. You have the safest idea in mind, but I don't think there's one person in film that you can say goes to set and doesn't learn anything. That's insane. And if you're not learning, then you're not growing and you're getting kind of stagnant. And that, in my opinion, is the worst thing for an artist.
Yeah. It must be sort of weird though, wearing the two hats. Here you are, you're a producer, and you're making sure everything is copacetic on set, or then you're an actress, and again, it's got to be sort of hard to turn off that producer button and just become an actress. Just like, okay, or if you're not a producer on that set, still got to be hard for you to turn off that button. Because the worst thing you can do is say, I would have did this, but it's not your set, so it's not your set, so you can't say that. How many times have that's happened to you where you've actually wanted to say something, but then you sit there and go like, well, you know what? It's not my worry.
Yeah, that saying, like, not my monkey, not my circus. Like, I feel like that, it really picking and choosing your battles. I feel like I'm very lucky for the people that I've been able to work with, and it's definitely harder, I think, to be an actor on a project and not produce, write, or direct it and sit there and be like, ooh, I might have done this differently, or I would have treated this person differently. But that being said, this past year, I had my film Disconnected, which I wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. And then I did another one called Memory Lane, which is in post-production. And that one is, I think, by far the most difficult project I've ever worked on in certain capacities, because we were shooting 2 night shoots in summer. So the days are long, nights are short. And most of our stuff was all car rigs. So we're shooting in this beautiful 1970s GMC pickup truck, up and down Main Street of a little Collingwood. It's called Collingwood. It's 2 hours north of Toronto. It's a cottage town, essentially. And, that was really difficult to be in the car, be an actor, be the writer, director, be the producer, and turn my brain off in that capacity. But I think the thing that has helped me is working with people that I really believe in. I trust the people I work with. And if I don't get something, I feel confident enough in our relationship to be like, you got to explain that to me. Like, I don't get it. Or how's this going to work? It just goes back to the trust and the communication, and the respect. I think when you have good respect and good communication, that's such a recipe for success, and just plan, think of everything. And there's so much that I've learned along the way that I'm really grateful for. And I know that there's so much more that I have to learn. So every time I just try to go to set with the best intentions possible and, use the skills out of my Rolodex that I've been able to cultivate and curate in the time that I've been a filmmaker, and try and pick up some new ones from other people, just even different things, different ways to address my team, lingo that might make things a little bit more clear, certain phone calls to make ahead of time, whether that's with a caterer or getting locations equipment. Maybe we get a little bit more equipment than we need just in case, weather can change in a minute. Like, there's just all these things that you learn as you go that you kind of take with you and put in your back pocket. So I think it comes down to trust, communication, respect, and being confident in your skills, but also knowing that you don't know everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It
Okay.
makes perfect sense.
Okay, good.
Do you feel there's still a glass ceiling for not only women themselves, but I mean, I could be wrong here. It could be I'm putting myself way out on there, but I'm just from my observation. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to be really embarrassed. But do you find a glass ceiling not only for you as a woman, but as a um, I don't know how to say that without sounding really like a horse's ass. Um, because I don't know, but I'm just saying based on what I've seen
Yeah.
as a woman and as a God Almighty, I don't know why I'm stuttering over this.
It's
As a
okay.
gay,
Don't worry.
as a gay woman.
I'm actually I'm not gay.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So,
yeah. I mean a lot of the stories that I tell and I want to support, really highlight LGBTQ communities.
yeah,
Uh,
that's how I guess I gleaned that from because I've seen you support those a lot.
yeah.
So
And you know what? That's something I've always been passionate about. A lot of friends in that community, family in that community, and honestly, I think that it's so hard with glass ceilings because there's always going to be people that want to stop telling certain stories, whether those are female stories or diverse stories or LGBTQ stories. And those people are the people that I feel like I want to, I don't say compete with the most, but it's like they're the people that whose minds need to change because a lot of those
what do you
people
mean by compete? What do you mean by that?
I wanna make films that they'll see, whether I don't necessarily wanna work with them, but I think, I wanna make films in the same space so that hopefully they watch one of them and their opinions change, or the conversation changes, or they have a conversation, or they think differently. Because I think within film, there's so many unique opportunities to not only entertain, but to educate, and I'm grateful that a lot of the work that I've been able to do so far highlights different topics, whether that's campus rape and sexual harassment and MFA, or sugar baby culture and gender equality in Daddy's Playground, or mental health in my last film, Disconnected. Like, there's, I did a film called The Kiss. It played it in Cannes. Like, that highlights a transgender story. And um, I think for me, I've always just been so interested in people. And, I think that both going back to my relationship with my parents, like my parents always raised me to believe that you have something to learn from everyone. You should treat the CEO and the janitor the same way. And my parents do that, so I was kind of like raised by example of two people who were really open to a lot of different worlds that weren't necessarily their own, if that makes sense, so I think and it goes back to be a good teammate, be a good person. There are so many stories that need to be told. I think the glass ceiling that I feel right now is, kind of just being at a weird spot in my career where I've done a lot of cool stuff that I'm super proud of, but I haven't been around long enough per se to kind of get to that next level. So for me, I want to be making a big TV show. I want to be a creator showrunner of my own projects. So I'm like, okay, how do I get there? Like, how do I gain the experience so that the decision makers and kind of the gatekeepers, if you will take a chance on me,
Do
And
you
I pardon?
do you find that the further the higher you climb, the more because I always said this. It seems like when we talk about our bank system here, right? And I've always felt like this. I've always felt like you know the higher you climb in a bank, right, or like a lawyer or anything else, it seems like the higher you climb, the more corrupt you get. The dirtier you get, the more calloused you get. Do you feel like that happens in the same thing with film companies? It's like when they were idealistic and and passionate and driven and goal oriented, as far as helping everybody else when they were young and open minded. Do you find as they get older, the narrow it gets narrower and narrower? Like when you go up there, it's someone who wants to, you want to be a showrunner, but then
Right,
when you go up to somebody who is a showrunner and they're like, well, you know what? Maybe she's coming after my job. Maybe that's what she wants. Instead of sitting there going like, this is what worked for me. This is what I did. This is how it worked. Do you find it as you go higher that people are more basically defensive about their position and their knowledge?
I don't think so. I feel like all the people that I've met who are at, the very top have all been incredibly kind, successful, so open to sharing their knowledge and, their experiences, which I'm very grateful for. I know there are a lot of jerks within the industry, absolutely, but I feel like the ones that I've had the unfortunate pleasure of interacting with have all been very early on in my career, or people who don't treat people well. It's not even that they could be very talented storytellers, but if they don't treat people well, I don't wanna work with them, and that's been something since day 1 for me. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, so I'm sorry for swearing, but I don't wanna work with assholes. Like, I'm not gonna work with an asshole. It's just not happening. Life
Uh,
is too short, and I'm not doing it.
I'm also a general question because I happen to know a very a pretty big mover and shaker, and I cannot begin to tell you how incredibly open and kind she is. It blows me away
Yeah,
that it does. It blows me away that you can sit there and talk to her.
right.
Like that would never you never would have thought that. When you think of it's like calling Tom Hanks on your phone and start talking to him. It's like
But
that
they're
doesn't
people too.
happen.
They're
Uh-huh.
people who worked really hard and have, had big goals and big dreams and just worked really hard to achieve them, and I think when we put people on pedestals, the only thing we expect them to do is fall, and that's not true. There a lot of people are up there wanting to reach their hand down and help somebody out,
Yeah.
I believe in the latter, like, when you're up there, you gotta reach back down and help somebody else, whether that's either through mentorship, which, is something that I've been exploring more and more, trying to be a mentor to filmmakers, as well as have some really wonderful people in my life who aren't necessarily in film, but are people that I've looked up to, whether from they're in business or entertainment or in other capacities, even some of my old coaches. I've had a lot of people in my life that I've been able to look to be like, okay, this is how you treat people. This is how you move forward. And I think a lot of people at the top, you know, I I just don't. There's people that obviously we've heard of or whatever who have been difficult or bad. But I think for the most part, you know, a lot of people at the top are good. They worked really hard to be there.
Yeah, I guess it's some of yeah. I mean, I don't know that many. I mean, I only know like the one person. I mean, on that level that could actually sit there. So my knowledge is not well. Actually, now two, and both of them are outstanding human beings. Yeah, I'll say that. In fact, I just talked to him last Sunday.
That's
That
awesome.
guy, Dave McLean, is just like legend. It's just like holy crow. Um, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about your, because I want to get in the creative side of this. But talk
Mhm.
to me about about when you started acting. I mean, how do you prepare for roles? And do you like to? I mean, when you do get to get ready, I feel like this is for you. Um, when you are on a set and you're acting, how important is silence to you to get ready? Yeah, silence.
You know what's interesting? I feel like I I've grown up like always on the go, whether I was like going here, going there, going to second city, then going to practice, then going skiing. Like I did most of my homework in the car or on the bus to school. So I feel like noise has never really been an issue for me. Memorizing lines, whether that's, on a subway train or in the car, like um I've always been a bit of a multitasker, so silence, it can be important. It depends on what it is, but I feel like I'm grateful that I've trained with some really wonderful acting teachers and have really worked on my craft to be in a position where I can be ready. Obviously, if someone's absolutely screaming and freaking out, that's a different story. But for the most part, like I don't need absolute silence. And I think, in 2019, I started going to an acting school called the Actors Foundry. It's based here in Vancouver, where I was living at the time, full time pre pandemic. And my acting teacher, Matthew Harrison, he kind of combined all of the different acting schools I'd ever been to. There was such great, I don't say like academic work, but almost it felt a little, taken from academia from Strasbourg. About preparation and how to get into character and how to feel the emotions that I need to, as well as a little bit of Anthony Mindel, which is another really wonderful acting teacher that I've had. about trusting myself and my emotions and my instincts. And it just kind of felt like when I met that teacher, everything just kind of came together in a different way for me. And I feel like, especially during the pandemic, we all had a lot of time to sit with ourselves and sit with our emotions. And my acting class was kind of like my one constant. And I feel like I became a better actor during the pandemic, I would say. Like, and I also feel like I'm more me than I've ever been, which is really exciting, because that's all. Acting is the art form of life. So to get to know myself a little bit better and know what I need to do to prepare and what I don't, um, I'm grateful that I know those a little bit better now.
Yeah, because I just thinking to myself, I was, because you wear all the hats,
Mhm.
and I was just thinking it's, most, to get prepared for a role or, get in the mood, get into the character or whatnot. It seems like you would need to have a little bit of more space than most people do, because, everybody's pulling on your cape, everybody wants a little bit of your attention,
Yeah.
especially if you're a producer as well and director. Here you
Right.
are, you're trying to get into the role, and then all of a sudden here comes somebody going, oh, by the way, and then what about this and yeah, it's to me it would be really difficult to sit there and try to get in that character and stay in that character, stay in that mode, when everybody's trying to once always constantly want a piece of you. um
Hmm.
I've said this before and I'll say it again too. I really do believe this. I think one of the fundamental things I see a lot of directors do wrong is when they're they write and direct, at least to the first couple of movies. I just feel like, wow, you gotta do one or the other, but you can't do both.
And I did
um
them all. And then I
yeah.
wrote, directed, produced, and starred. So how do you feel about that, Patrick?
Well, I mean it's just a rare thing to see anybody do it, and like, because to me the division is just so hard. I mean, I've seen two. I'm seeing writer and a director.
Right.
That's hard enough, but to wear four hats at once,
Right.
yeah, it's just got to be a incredibly special. You got to be you're incredible talented to be able to do that. Um, I mean, and hats off to you, because honestly, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of films where a lot of them are first time writers to directors, and they
Mhm.
crash and burn because they just can't balance it out. And then some of them actually do try to star in their movie. I
Right.
wrote it, so I'm going to star it as well. And again, they just really seem to trip over the root. You got to do one or the other. I don't really think you should, and especially when you're starting off. I mean, a first time writer and director, that's gonna be tough, incredibly tough. Um, have you ever executive produced? In other words, go get the money.
Yep, I've executive produced a bunch of different times. And I think there's different ways. EP doesn't always executive producer doesn't always mean money. It can sometimes mean resources in a different capacity, whether that's like different connections or, a lot of what I do for other filmmakers is lend them my producer number through the CMPA so that they are able to work at a certain level. And it's through a mentorship program. It's not like I'm just like, here's my number, woo. Um, but it's an opportunity for filmmakers who might not be able to afford to join the CMPA, or they don't necessarily have the experience yet to do so. So sometimes I'll come on board to EP, give my producer number as well as mentorship. So I'm kind of more of a mentoring producer EP. Oh, hi, Kitty. Um, and yeah, I've EP'd quite a few times. And I think with that too, it really depends on the project. Sometimes I'll EP and I'm more hands off. Um, and it just depends. But I'm more so of a hands on. I like to be there, be my support, or give my support to the director. Especially Leah and I. Just going back to that, like with Pamela and Ivy, it was her and I. We were the like co-creators of that, and we had an
Yeah.
incredible team and all of that. But oh, someone said they lost some connection there. So hopefully they didn't lose too much. I'm just talking about Pamela and Ivy, which is a Poison Ivy origin story. Yeah, you can find it online, pamelaandivy.com. Um, slight plug,
You
but
can find the review you can find the review on my blog. I reviewed that.
you can. But something like
Yeah.
that, and really watching like, okay, where do you best split your time? And, Leah wrote, directed, and starred in that. And I think, that inspired me in so many ways because I was like, I want to do this too. And Leah's obviously, super supportive and all those things. But I think, the best thing I would say to someone who would want to wear all four hats, and has the ability and the aptitude to do so, because it's not for everyone. Like, I wouldn't
Mhm.
say to someone, like, go write a script if you don't actually like writing. Find a
Right.
friend who will write for you. Like, not everyone's a writer, not everyone's a director. Like, you don't have to do, yes, Poison Ivy from Batman. Um, sorry, I'm reading the chat and trying to,
Oh,
um,
yep.
but
Yep.
um, yeah, like it's I'm so sorry. Can you hear her barking again? Ah. We're at our friend's house who's been so wonderful and let us stay here, and she watched my dog while I was in Austin. My friend Lauren Hale, who's wonderful. Um, but to anyone who's wanting to wear those four hats, I would say, make sure you want to do it and make sure you're prepared. Like, everything I could think of, from storyboarding to going on extra location scouts to rehearsals to chatting with my fellow actor to chatting with every single location that I could. It was just, I felt like, it was all the work that I would typically do and then some,
Yeah.
because in that project, it's such a personal story for me, Memory Lane, as is Disconnected. But, I was like, I have to get this right. There's so many people for this, especially like I've grown up in and around Collingwood where we shot the film. And so a lot of people took, chances on me and, pulled favors for me. And I was like, I have to prove them right. So I have to give extra care, extra dedication, extra, everything in order to get this done to the ability that we all know it can be. And to have a team that you really believe in and you really support, and, and that supports you.
Um, yeah, I want to go. Let's talk a little bit about Pamela and Ivy, because I absolutely love that film. I thought that film kicked ass. And I gotta admit, one thing that's really impressed me about that, because he was, damn, he was really good. Eric Roberts,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's what I had to I had to readjust my viewpoint of him, because before I just see his name on all these movies, and I was just like, it got to be where I saw it, I wouldn't even give it a chance, because it's like, this guy's doing everything.
Yeah.
He's just but I watched Poison Ivy, Pamela and Ivy, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching them going like, you know, I I got to watch a couple more things here, but I'm sensing something here, and that is,
Yeah.
and it's true, and it's absolutely true. Eric
Right.
Roberts comes to work. He does not
Absolutely.
phone. He does not phone anything in, does he?
No, no, he doesn't.
Uh,
And he he's an incredible actor, incredible performer. He's so respectful, he's so kind, and we're, still so lucky that we got to work with him, and we hope to work with him again.
yeah, what's going on with the? I asked us about Leah, about Pamela and Ivy. Are we going to get something more out of that? Are you guys going to be able to do another? Huh?
We're trying. We're really working on it and kind of figuring out what that might look like for us. And we have a couple other projects together in the works, and one in particular that we're really trying to make happen this summer. So DC, we love DC, and we both have spoken to them for different things. So fingers crossed. I can't say too much more, but yeah, hopefully. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
that
was
would be
going to say.
that would be a
I
dream.
comment. I commented on this. It seems like, before, like even as little as 10 years ago, when you try to do a fan film,
Totally.
man, it's really, really tough. It was really tough, because they're either they sit there and say no, or they want to see every single thing that you do, and everything, and even then you might not get it. But lately it seems like the studios have actually sort of loosened up a little bit as far as that goes. Like, you know, allowing a project like Pamela and Ivy to go, and not sit there and say, "Seasons is this," because those are our characters.
Right.
They turn around and said, "Hell, it looks pretty badass to me." I'm not going to say nothing about it. And they're encouraging you. I think they had mentioned that they liked what they saw.
Right.
And that's really impressive, because, like I said, most studios they're so protective of their intellectual property that they would not do that.
Mhm.
Um, so more power to you for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I do hope it does deserve a feature.
I think so
Oh,
too. I
it does.
agree.
It does. And you got to have a bigger part, though. You got to, yeah, you got to be a bigger part. Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. I
So,
was a sole producer on that, and that was definitely my focus, and, that was really the first project that I didn't have anybody to run to. On MFA, I had Shin Simisoa, who is like, the absolute best. I wanna be like Shin when I grow up, and, this time I was like, "Oh, wow, there's no one. Like, I have to figure this out." And, also, Leah was directing first and foremost, so, it wasn't really like we had a lot of opportunities to, um, you know, pull each other aside and be like, "How do we figure this out?" Like, it was a lot of,
see, that's what I was saying. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. Like, how do you get in that role? And like, because you don't have the time. Because yeah, that's insane. To balance that out. But yeah, I really am hoping. I haven't said too much about that, but in my back of my mind, I'm going out. I'm waiting. I keep waiting for something to pop up on social media from one of you guys. Sitting there going, like, guess what we're doing? And I'm going like,
If
oh,
we know,
damn.
we'll tell you. Absolutely.
Good. I want to break the news. It's gonna be exclusive here on Eight
Ooh,
Questions.
ooh la la. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so you said before you done comedy too.
Mhm.
Now what projects have you done? Well, let me ask this. How many projects have you done other than MFA that we, the fan, can see Mariah Owen act in?
Acton, did MFA, Pamela and Ivy, Disconnected, Memory Lane. Um, I did The Artist.
So
I've done
we could go out there and buy these films.
You can buy them, you can watch them. You Yeah, I think if you go on through IMDb, you can see what I've acted in and worked on, and a lot of it's also available. Like, if I put links on my Instagram, or if you just Google it, they'll come up.
Um, Hi Timothy, welcome aboard, sir. Welcome aboard.
Hi,
Um,
Timothy.
and Star Lord says looks really good, so he must have saw the trailer. It is it's badass.
Thank you.
I watched that movie and I was like, this is this is what a cool direction too. Because Poison Ivy's always been an interesting character to me. Because her origin story and whatnot, it's really interesting. And she wasn't really all bad at all. You
Right.
know, and so to have her portrayed as Leah decided to, and why the hell not? Because it seems like everybody else is retconning the character, so why the hell not? Why
Yeah.
not? Why not retcon Pamela as an anti-hero? Works for me. Hell, I've been reading comics since I was, like forever ago, and why not? I loved her take on it. Um, so uh, back to horror real quick because this is Women in Horror Month. What? So I have to ask you a couple of questions here. What are some of the scariest movies that what movies scare you? Like, can you watch a horror film now without getting
Yes.
turning off all the
Yes.
lights?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, I love psychological thrillers. I'm actually gearing up to shoot my first feature as a writer director. It's called Grace, and that's a psychological thriller that kind of falls within the horror space. But I think, you know, th- I think the very first horror film that I really watched was The Strangers.
Oh, the Kristen Stewart
I
movie.
was
Oh
terrified that,
no, no, that's the Scott Speedman one.
like, Scott Stevens with Liv Tyler,
Yeah.
and just thinking that I watched it with three friends at my parents' house, and I was like, "This is it. We're 16 years old. We've had a good life. Clearly, someone is in the house, and this is it. This is it." So that was probably the very first scary horror film I ever saw. I do not enjoy clowns, so the original is horrific to me. I can't sit through it. I mean, kudos. It's obviously a very legendary horror film. But
Yeah.
I've seen Halloween. I've seen the original as well as the reboot this past year. Or yeah, within the last year.
Which one did you like better, the original or the reboot?
I feel like I liked the original based on what it did at the time. I most recently watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix because one of my mentors and friends, Shinsa Masood, produced that. So I watched that, and I watched it with the lights off, which is a huge, huge
Good for
step.
you.
Thank you. But I also really enjoy certain films that play with the boundaries. Like It Follows, I thought was a really incredible
Oh,
horror film
love
because
that
it just,
movie.
yeah, it played with the medium and a different storytelling. This past weekend at South by Southwest, I saw an incredible film called Soft and Quiet. It's shot all one shot, directed by Beth De Araujo. It's going to be distributed by Blumhouse. Super, super cool. Shot, as I mentioned, all in one day. Like it just takes you on such a trippy ride, and it's so uncomfortable, and it's this epic thriller. So I think now as I get older, I don't really enjoy like the slasher films per se. Like I'm not like a Freddy Krueger type of watch.
Right.
I really enjoy films like The Sixth Sense, like It Follows, Get Out. I love films that are very
Make,
unnerving in our society.
make you think a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Seven.
it follows. I what I loved about It Follows, I thought the secret of that movie was with the soundtrack. I mean, with the score.
Holy score plays such an
Score,
epic
score with
role.
everything in that
Mhm.
movie.
So
Um, Now, do you pick the scores for the movies for that you do, or how do you come across, and how do you for your projects? How do you like do things like that? How do you come up with with the sound? I mean, because do you have it in your head of what it should sound like, or do you trust the composer to come up with something that they think that you'll like?
I think it really depends on the project, to be honest. I think for anything that I've directed, I've kind of gone in knowing what I want the sound to be. Whether it's just sound design or if it's typical composing. Um, there's such beauty in having a great music composer and supervisor. You could get some really epic songs that just take your movie to a whole other level. There's ways to um, have great juxtaposition. Horror films in particular, or any mafia movie. Think about a big killing scene, and they're playing instrumental music or something like that. Like that juxtaposition of what's actually going on with something that's such so chaotic and dark with such a beautiful piece of music. I think that music and the soundtrack has such a really cool way of elevating a film that is so important.
Yeah, I do too. So, I listen. I mean, a lot of movies. It's really about the score for me. Um, a movie I'll recommend to you that you watch for the movie like that will have the score will be really important. Is actually if I say this, I'm sure I'll get the answer in the chat. But
Mhm.
what's my favorite movie that I'm going to tell Mariah to watch? I'll give them a couple minutes because they'll tell you what it is. What's the one
Okay.
movie that I'm always talking about? I'll be disappointed if no one says nothing. Um, did you get a chance to see X when you were at South by Southwest?
I didn't actually. So while I was at South by this year, mostly as alumni doing the intros and Q&As for different films, which was a really cool opportunity because I got to see a lot of films that I probably wouldn't have chosen to see originally just based on the schedule and what else was going on. So it was a really unique opportunity, and a lot of the films were international, so wouldn't really have the opportunity to see them here in North America unless they got distribution further down the line. So I did not see it, but I want to. Oh, Pumpkins. Is that what?
No, no,
Oh,
that's Casey. He's racking up trouble with like because I watched this movie called Pumpkins. I reviewed it, and okay, so it was brutal. Okay, you always when you review a film, you always try to come up with something good about the film. You always try to,
right.
right? I did. I really, honest to God, I did. Okay, but that movie was absolutely brutal. It was not good on any level. It's just like you're sitting there and just like your jaw drops. It's just like what you just shake your head sometimes. Have you ever watched a movie like that? I mean, you're sitting down as a have you watched a movie and you're looking at not only through like a fan's eyes, but through a director and a producer's eyes? You ever watched a movie and you're going like, what the hell am I watching?
Yes, actually, there. I don't want to call it out because I don't want to be disrespectful
Oh
because
no,
making
you
film is
call it out.
it
Call it
was
out.
the police officer's wife. I saw it with my parents at TIFF years ago, and it stuck with me as one of the like worst films I had seen. It was just so slow and didn't really have a plot. Didn't really, I mean, there's a couple, but that one for me always sticks out. Like, and I've read other reviews on it, and I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Or you watch, something
You
like
know,
Emily in Paris? Like, I can't believe that got a second season. Like, it's just,
yes.
it's
Yeah,
hard.
I was like that with A Ghost Story.
Mm.
I'm sitting there watching that movie. I'm going like, so because it's certified on Rotten Tomatoes, and all that, and I'm sitting there going like, am I watching somebody? Why am I? Where's the movie that is supposed to be like good? I mean, it got all this high praise, but where's the? Did I get the wrong movie by chance? Because what I'm watching here is like, I'm gonna go bury it in the cat box, because this is a horrible movie.
And it's
Um,
hard because there's certain films like I did not enjoy Wonder Woman. I enjoyed the special effects. I enjoyed some of the performances, but overall, I didn't. As a woman, I didn't particularly find it empowering. And everyone keeps telling me that it should be. And I love Patty Jenkins. I love Monster. I think that's an incredible film. But Wonder Woman, I just was like, okay, so this strong woman who's been raised by strong women is now going to leave all those women for a guy she just met, and the only reason she becomes who she is because she loses this guy. I was like, what? What the heck? Like, how is
how
that
about
empowering?
and the second one? The second one was, I was just absolutely blown away with how hideous that script was.
So
I was
it's
like,
hard.
that is so wrong. It's so wrong,
It's
you
hard.
know.
But
I don't know if you saw Wonder Woman 84 or not, but yeah, that was actually downright disturbing, to tell you the truth. It wasn't necessarily bad or good, but it was very disturbing.
yeah, it's hard.
Uh,
Making a film is always such an accomplishment, and it's just hard. I have trouble putting people down because I know how much work it takes. But then again, like, you got to tell a story that is
Makes
important.
sense.
Yeah.
Uh, our friend Dragon Movie Guy here, Mariah, as a indie producer director, do you think streaming services, Netflix, Prime, Max, have a positive effect on producing smaller budget films and getting them to fans festivals? I mean, yeah, how has streaming affected as filmmakers go? I mean, it used to be when streaming first started out, like with Amazon Prime being a great example, it
Hmm.
used to be that Amazon Prime would take anything and everything
Right.
and pay you. But now it seems like now that's not the case. Now they won't take you, and if they do take you, they're going to give you, they're going to pay you like Spotify pays artists. We'll
Right.
give you, so how is streaming, affecting the smaller budgeted films in your opinion?
I
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I There's obviously an oversaturation to anything that is successful. More people try to monetize their content or follow in the same direction. We're living in a world where every single network has a streaming service, which is wild, wild to me. I think other than Sony, CNN Plus, Paramount Plus, obviously Netflix, Amazon, Roku, all of those things. So I think it definitely provides a lot of opportunities for products to be made because there's definitely a hunger for content, especially after COVID, where most people have been sitting at home for the last, 2 years and just really looking for content. That being said, anytime there's an oversaturation in the market, it's really hard to get your project seen or let's say you do a podcast. I've done podcasts. It's really hard to get them out there because there are so
Oh,
many. So what do you do, to help your project stand out? And I think that goes to, finding really unique topics and finding a unique perspective, and a home for that project where they have a good marketing budget, or just some different type of talking point. I hope I answered your question. Like,
no, yeah, I agree with you on the podcast thing. It's so oversaturated. It's crazy how,
yeah,
everybody has a pod. I call this a podcast because basically, I sort of patterned the show basically on Michael Rosenbaum from
right,
Smallville. I sort of, modeled what I do on his show. He has a set little opening chit chat. Then he has his guest on. They do like an hour and a half or so, and then he gets out of there. And I also like Kevin Pollock's show that he was doing called Chat Show. That was really good too. He did that like we're doing it now. But I always tell people when they watch this, you don't have to watch it. You could just listen to it as a podcast. So,
Totally.
uh, hi, Rick. How are you, sir? Let's see. There's another part. Dragon's question here. I'll read to you. Does it make it easier to get movies that you made and seen with the domination of streaming services that have largely killed middle and low budget films?
That's a really good question. I feel like, to be honest, we're living in a world where a lot of the films, it's hard what we call low budget, like $2
Yeah,
million dollars is a lot of money, but that's still considered low budget. And that's a lot of, between that $2 to $5 million, that's a lot of Hallmark films that are shot within 2 weeks. That would be $2 million goes goes a long way in horror. Or in a drama. There's just it depends, I think, truly on the story that you're telling. I don't have all the answers, but everyone obviously wishes that they had more money for every project that they do. But that being said, I think the difference between getting your film made and then made and seen by people is just having a really unique perspective, or a really killer team and cast and performances, and cinematography and sound, like just really having something that is unique and powerful, and not necessarily powerful in the way that it has to be groundbreaking, but is it uh can it stand on its own within the genre that it's in?
um, now we actually talked about this earlier, Dragon, but I'll read this out.
Okay.
Do you think? I personally will tell you no. He says, He asked, do you think that Rust, the movie we talked about, do you think it ever finished and seen in theaters? I'm going to say no on that. I think that movie is deader than a doornail.
I don't know. I mean,
No.
it's so hard because I think that, the writer of that film, and I'm unfamiliar with their name, so I apologize, like, you work so hard to write something, and to get it made is such an accomplishment, and it's so heartbreaking now that all the good people on that project who really had care and pride in what they do and due diligence are
Yeah.
now suffering the after effects and the aftershocks of people who really didn't give a shit of doing their job. And that
I,
is so
I
unfortunate.
mean, I do think that the people who worked on the film definitely got paid for their time there or whatnot. And maybe that what I was thinking about that too, because I've thought about that, and we're like,
You
no,
can't
I
put a
don't think
price on.
the movie. I don't think the movie will be made in its present incarnation.
Mhm.
But I do believe, maybe like 5 years or so or whatnot, they might be able to remake that movie, but call it underneath a different name. I wouldn't
Definitely.
call it.
I don't know. I'm not a part of that, but I just don't think you can put a price on grief or trauma, which everyone a part of that
Yeah,
film and, Helena Hutchinson's family just will feel every day for the rest of their lives. So
yeah.
I don't know what that would look like, especially because there's just been so much uncertainty and tragedy and just, devastation surrounding that project, that I don't know if anyone would want to go back to it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh, I guess I'm looking at you got to shoot tomorrow, right? You're right now. You're up in Vancouver because you're working on a project. What movie are you working on?
I'm working on a couple different projects up here. I have a shoot that I'm directing for a commercial, so that's exciting. And then I'm in just getting ready to shoot my feature later this year.
Okay. Commercial. That'll be fun. Would it be what's going to be international or just Canadian?
It'll be international, so it'll be available on all social media platforms, which will be fun. So it'll play, before Snapchat and fun stuff like that. So
Good, good.
yeah,
I I if you got like 5 minutes, I'm gonna try to let the chat ask you a couple more questions that they like to
yeah, I can
before I
see
sort of dominated the conversation. If he and Casey did put down the right movie. It's a movie called A Dark Song.
Oh, I don't know that.
It's on ISC Midnight. I'll send you the link to it. That's an absolutely beautiful film, and every movie should be exactly like that. A writer director, first time writer director should be like that. I will send you the link to it. Yeah. Any questions for our guest, Mariah Owen? Feel free. Dragon, thank you for yours, man. That you came in blazing. I really appreciate that. Okay. Timothy's mentioning here. He lives in Kingston, Ontario, which
Oh,
is near Toronto. Awesome to see you filming in Canada. Yeah, she's a Canadian. She's from
oh
Toronto.
yay.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I
I'm from
know.
Toronto. I know.
I have to say though, Mariah, I have not heard you. I have not heard any. I could not tell if you're a Canadian or not.
I mean, I
I
think
can't.
a huge part of living in Toronto, you audition for a lot of American shows, and I also have American family, and I spent a lot of time in the US. So, and I always have growing up. So I just don't think that I've really had the Canadian accent. That's awesome though. Kingston is becoming, a big hub of shooting as well. Taylor Sheridan's new show, Mayor of Kingstown, was actually filmed around Kingston. Taylor Sheridan is someone that I look up to. He created Yellowstone in 1883. He wrote Sicario. He's nominated for an Oscar for Hell or High Water. I'm totally geeking out right now. But so I want to go to Kingston so I can hopefully one day work on that show.
Let's see. Star Lord's asking you, what's your favorite movie all time? What's your favorite movie all time?
Okay, I don't
Let's
have
go
one
better. Let's go
favorite.
better. Let's do five.
Thank you. And I also get very nervous when I tell people my favorite movies because they're so diverse in what they are. And I think it highlights all of the things that I love.
We'll
Uh,
love it.
so
We'll love you.
I love old films like Sunset Boulevard. I love
Mhm.
comedies like The Hangover. I love La La Land. I love The Grinch, which Jim Carrey's version is the absolute best. And I love Goodfellas. So you know, I love them all so much for different things. Goodfellas, I love Scorsese. I wrote a lot about him when I was in college. And that tracking shot, I really believe changed a lot of cinema. And I think that he is just so incredible in his own right, but just really inspired me to kind of think about different ways to shoot things, how to pull an audience on a journey. The Grinch was the first time I ever saw a world completely different than my own. That movie came out when I was like 6 years old. And I was like, how they created an entirely different world. How can I do that? That is so, and it was a world I wanted to be a part of. And as a kid, obviously Christmas is important, and the magic of that. La La Land, I love the ending that two people who really love each other don't end up together. And
Right.
they work so hard to help each other achieve their dreams, and yet they can't be together. Um, Sunset Boulevard. I've just always loved the golden age of cinema, and I've loved old Hollywood. So I think there's just so many reasons why I love that. Again, also why I love La La Land. Um, the Hangover, or something like Step Brothers. I love to laugh. Like it's my Second City background coming through, and yeah. So I truly love a little bit of everything. But then again, I also love, like I keep saying, The Sixth Sense. Like that twist to pull people in and then completely flip them on their head.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I mean, I love movies in general, even movies like I know I don't enjoy slasher films, but I really try to find something unique in every film because
Sure.
I love movies.
I spent an hour and a half trying to find that in Pumpkins. Didn't find it though, but I did try.
You
Good
win some,
book.
you lose some.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I lost that time. What makes it worse though is when I watch a movie with Paladin, the cheetah. What makes it worse is when the movie's really bad. He always lets me know about it too. Um, and he does. Let's see. Yeah, and he also followed up with a question of who's your favorite director. Let's make that a little bit more fun and sit there and say, if you could shadow any one director, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh wow. I mean, uh that's really tough. I feel like
Like Billy Wilder versus Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese, but then
Oh,
again, I'd also really love to shadow Taylor Sheridan. The fact that he's able to go back and forth between feature and TV and tell these really intricate stories of an ensemble cast that, reflect back to the world in which he grew up in. He's born and raised in Texas, and um, highlights family dynamics, and like family is super important to me. And I think that a lot of the stories that I tell highlight different dynamics within the world. But then
it
again,
seems
like
like Yellowstone's sort of like Dallas. It's sort of like Dallas, sort of on steroids. You
I
know?
never watched Dallas, so I'm not sure. But
Um,
I also would really love to shadow Catherine Bigelow. Like there's some really incredible female directors, or a female showrunner I would love to shadow is Shonda Rhimes. I'd love to shadow Greg Berlanti. Like there's just I feel like there's so many people that I look up to and I respect, and whose work I admire, and whose the way that they have interacted and their reputation. This is so hard. This is a really hard question that I'm gonna have to think a little bit more on. So thank you for giving that to me. There's so many names in my head.
No, I love it. I'm really appreciating they're asking some really good questions here.
Thank you.
Let's see. Let's see. You're wearing a South by Southwest hat. What would it take to get an indie film festival of that caliber to spring up here in Las Vegas? Funding, big name star support, etc.
As in, you're starting a festival up there in Vegas?
Boy, that would be. I think he's asking like, what would it take to actually get one going in Vegas? That's not, that
would be incredible.
I can actually see that happening because I've been interviewing a few people lately that have from Vegas, and it seems to be really on the rise. It seems like there's a lot of projects that are coming into Vegas now.
I actually shot. So I did commercial content for a video game called NHL 20 by EA Sports. So it's a hockey video game, and we filmed the majority of it in Las Vegas. So there's a couple great camera houses. Nevada is working on bumping up their tax credit. I love Vegas. I've spent so much of my life kind of going there, whether that's to Lake Mead, or as I mentioned at the start of this, my mom's involved in gymnastics. So there's a lot of Cirque du Soleil and, acrobatic gymnastics there. I will go to that festival 100%.
Yeah.
And I've also produced other film festivals. So it's, my DMs are always open. If anyone ever has questions, feel free to DM me, whether it's about filmmaking or, creating and curating film festivals and programming. That's something I'm super passionate about. But I think the best thing to do to spring up an event is really try to make the best of what you have. Like, don't try and go for like a 7-day festival. Go for something that's one day, and think about the programming that you as a filmmaker would like to learn. There's so many people that are willing to come out that way. There are some great filmmakers. I'm gonna look at I can't remember the name of the camera house. I think it's called Blackwood. But I would definitely hit them up and think about, okay, who are the heavy hitters within the Vegas area that I can, Blackwood Camera, that's what they're called. So Blackwood Camera, they're a really wonderful camera house in Vegas, and they have, over 50 retailers. They carry Alexa and Ari and everything else. So I would go to them and say, hey, can we have a partnership? Or, hey, can we have a pitch competition? Like, just really, focus on one day and making it the best that you possibly can. Start small.
Start small, work your way up. I'd probably make my first festival. I'd probably do short films.
Yep, that's
so you get more there, and you get more people there.
Yep.
That way you get the more variety, and then if it does well for the first couple of times, then you can expand it to 1-day shorts, 1-day features.
Right.
Okay. Have you? Yep. Let's see. There's more questions. Good. This is awesome right here. Have you written any screenplays we may see come to life in the future? You said you're working on your first feature film.
Yes. So it's called Grace. I can give you my log line. But it's basically a psychological thriller about a young girl in high school who starts showing the signs of being a serial killer. So I'm working on that. I'm also working on a film called Dead Friends Club, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart. It's all about the friends you make because a mutual friend has passed away. So that plays a very big role in my day-to-day life. So those are two projects that I'm really focused on in the feature space that I've written and I'm actively working on. And then a couple pilots that I've been pitching.
Pitching to Canadian or to the U.S.?
The U.S.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you. Let's see. Great interview, Mariah. You are looking wicked awesome.
Aw, thank you.
Yep. I tell you what. she does gotta go because I've kept her way past her bedtime. So I'm gonna go. But all that means is that we'll just have you come back.
I would love that anytime. You tell me. I'm happy to talk about movies. I'm happy to talk about filmmaking. Any of it. Maybe I'll even
Uh,
I'll watch that a dark song and we can do a review on that.
all right, you know what? I'm going to hold you to that because
Okay.
that's my absolutely favorite movie. So I would definitely do that.
Awesome.
Um, yep. I want to thank you for coming, Mariah. I really appreciate it so much. This has been awesome. It's just been amazing. I want to again, you guys are just tearing it up this week. You guys are choking me up too. You guys have been outstanding this week. My chats. Thank you so much for coming in and being so interactive. I'm totally blessed by you guys being here. I appreciate it so much. Um, I feel like we're all this show is taking off. So I really appreciate it so much. And we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with Christy Adams. Speaking of Vegas, we'll be talking to Christy Adams, who owns Nightmare Toys. She is the owner of Nightmare Toys, the biggest toy store in Las Vegas. Horror does horror all day long, and she'll be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And I hope that you will all come back and support that show as well. She's very sweet, very lovely lady, and it'll be a fun interview. Mariah, thank you again so much. Stay where you're at. Uh, Everybody else, thank you again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for the great questions.
Okay. All right, hold on one second.
Okay.